You're watching another Nerd Stalker interview. Good morning here on the West Coast, and good afternoon and good early evening in Ireland there, Northern Ireland. This is Greg Glory, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today I'm pleased to talk with Aaron Taylor, founder of Friday Night Mashup, a TEDx meets Shark Tank. That's the best way I can describe it. I'll let him kind of talk about that earlier, next, I mean. And then he's also the CEO and serial entrepreneur, and he's currently the CEO of GoPresso. So that's Aaron Taylor again. And he did once try. This is how much of an entrepreneur he is. He did once try to start a bungee jumping business off these Harlan and Wolff cranes, which are those big cranes they have like in ports and stuff like that. That's the best way I could describe it. And so it's not a bad place to put a bungee business in, but anyway, good evening, Aaron. Thanks for joining us here on Nerd Stalker Live from Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Thanks, Greg. I'm delighted to be here, and thanks for having me.
So, you want to add anything about yourself that I missed in between the bungee jumping business and your GoPresso that you wanted to talk to the Nerd Stalker audience about?
I think you covered it all. Obviously, quite a varying degree and across the spectrum in terms of trying to start a bungee jumping business. Set alongside like a tech entrepreneur. The interesting thing about the bungee jumping business was whenever we tried to get permission to do it, it turned out that there was something like a 97% chance of fatalities. So that was probably the only business I've ever been involved in where you had a 97% chance of dying if you used the product. So probably wasn't the greatest business to kick off.
Well, the insurance must have killed you.
The scary thing was the insurance wasn't actually that high in the quotes, which was even worse.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Joys of working in Northern Ireland?
No, but I've heard stories. So anyway, let's get into this. Let's talk a little bit about this Friday Night Mashup event that you founded. So what is this event?
Yeah, so basically the Friday Night Mashup, it's an event that we put on quarterly where basically we look to highlight the brightest and the best of Northern Irish creative industries, technology entrepreneurs, and really anybody with an interest in business, specifically within the startup space. This is our fourth one we just completed last week. Whenever we first started a year ago, I think our first event we had 150 people there. We had speakers from Rocket Space in San Francisco. We had serial entrepreneurs. It was a really, really great event, but I think what we found was that so many people took so much from it that we knew we had to do something bigger and better for the next time. And I think from there, it's really just taken on a life of its own. The last event we did there last week, we had 850 people at it. Wow. I think it cost in the region of nearly $45,000 to put on. We had a band, the Little Matador, playing, which is guy Nathan Conley, who is the lead guitar player in Snow Patrol.
Wow!
It was his band as well. It was playing. So it was a really fantastic event with people who are really energized and really excited to be there. And I think most importantly, it drives incredible value for everybody that attends.
So is this in an auditorium venue or outdoor venue, or how is this? Where is this?
Well, the nature of the mashup is quite quirky by design. So the last one we held it in a circus tent. So basically we had 450 people in a circus tent, circus performers, a load of startups, a load of really great speakers and some bands. The one we did on Thursday night there, basically we had that on an outdoor stage in a big marquee. It was like a big cool stretch marquee, and it was just all outside, outdoor catering vans, award-winning chefs. Nice. Really interesting stuff, but all very, very quirky.
Hey, I think that's your MO, my friend. If you did a bungee jumping business and into tech entrepreneurship, I think that just matches who you are, right?
Okay, I like the quirky things. Another one we did in the skate park was also pretty cool. We had the professional skateboarders and BMX artists up and down the ramps just doing ridiculous tricks. So it tends to be how we work. We like to sort of mash a lot of various different things together and have a lot of different cross segments all sort of interacting around each other. I think that's what drives creativity and collaboration. Having people with different backgrounds, different mindsets, different skill sets, all coming together with the same goal of just doing something incredibly cool and incredibly great that people actually want to use and want to work with.
So it sounds like you wanted to start an event to kind of not only spur creativity in the Northern Ireland area, the Belfast area, but also to highlight entrepreneurs maybe that do have businesses there that want to get a little bit more notice? Is that part of the promise of the event?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like a number of startups that we've had demo, and so at each event we always have startups at demo. Like a number of them have used the mashup to raise funding off the back of. Like one of the startups, Chance Plan, off the back of the mashup and various different other things, they raised over $160,000 on Kickstarter. We had another company that raised $75,000 on Kickstarter off the back of the mashup. So there's a lot of incredible value that comes from being part of the mashup itself. There's massive visibility you can get. We've worked with the guys at Microsoft Ventures, a lot of other venture firms. We've had VCs coming from New York, angel investors from San Francisco. So there's a massive potential to do something really interesting and to get really great visibility for your company as a startup. But we don't focus exclusively on early stage. We basically look across the spectrum. So if you have a product to launch, if you have just something interesting to say, if you're looking talent, if you're just basically looking to highlight something interesting going on within your company, we give everybody the visibility to do that in front of an audience of like roughly 850 to 1,000 people.
Wow, that's great. So let's talk about the Northern Ireland Belfast startup culture. What is when I looked at some numbers, or at least from the website, that that culture seems to be growing faster than other places in the UK. So maybe if you could comment on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, there's an incredible amount of activity right now within the startup space in Northern Ireland. Going back 3 to 5 years ago, it was quite a lonely existence because there wasn't as many people, especially not in the startup space within sort of like tech, consumer tech, ad tech, gaming, things like spaces like that. We've always had really good and bustling ecosystem, specifically around fintech. We've had a number of companies who've done exceptionally well there. Wombat, which was acquired by the New York Stock Exchange, but it's tended to be quite heavily focused on high tech, financial tech, life sciences, but there's definitely a lot of companies now coming out sort of in that softer consumer tech space, and I think it's really refreshing to see. There's also a lot more funding now available to companies in Northern Ireland. Again, it tends to be kind of heavily focused at the seed stage, so I think that's another reason why you have so many companies now coming through who are looking to do something really interesting. I think one of the problems we suffer from, which is why we set up the mashup, it's sort of heavily focused around awareness of opportunity. So people only really aspire to what they know. I think to a certain extent in Northern Ireland, people don't really have that visibility of what goes on outside. We're quite lucky in that we're based in San Francisco. Like my own company, GoPrezzo, we're based in Rocket Space in San Francisco, and we're also based in New York. So we have a lot of visibility around what goes on in the wider scheme, whereas a lot of people here don't. I think what we've tried to do is raise that awareness of opportunity to really focus people in terms of what they need to do to succeed. But one of the things we really lack is sort of access to funding post-seed round. So there's a massive gap between seed and Series A. I think that's something we've been looking quite hard at within the mashup itself to see can we bring over investors who can really bridge that gap.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole notion of trying to scale your company, right? You need that last round to do it, right, to push it over
Exactly.
the top, right?
I think it's an issue that's the same everywhere. I think you find lots of funds, even in the US, you find lots of funds there that are sort of the money's been condensed into a few who have got massive funds who are investing. But I think it's the dynamic of being based in Northern Ireland. You have to look outside of Northern Ireland to raise that round, and I think it's trying to encourage people to go out there, make a presence, and make a name for themselves. One of the companies who've done an exceptional job at this is a company called Brewbot. So they recently just completed Techstars in Austin, and they're well on their way to doing something really great. The product is a beer brewing robot, which always goes down well.
Oh yeah, I
But
saw that.
but their PR has been fantastic. As a team, they're just absolutely exceptional. And I think, obviously, the round that they're doing right now is going to be pretty special once it's announced. So like, they're flying the flag for Northern Ireland, and they're doing a really incredible job.
I think that's part of the issue. Like you said, or that's really an issue for startups around the world. Is there's so many of them now out there, which is a good thing, and in a way, it's tougher now because you have to, like you said, gain more awareness. And the PR has to be good, the marketing has to be good. All that has to kind of line up correctly to get noticed nowadays, right?
Okay, for sure. But I think it's always been that way. I think it's always been a case of like you have to have traction, you have to have something tangible there to hang your hat on. I
Mm.
think like, you're just gone are the days where you're just going to raise money on an idea to go and do something interesting. I think now it's quite easy to get early money. Like I think if you're in a company that can't raise early money, you probably have to question why you're why you've got a company in the first place. But it's incredibly difficult going from that early stage seed to get into Series A. I think there's the competition is ferocious, but at the same time, it's a good thing from the perspective of an investor. It really does. It is survival of the fittest, and it weeds out those who just don't have what it takes. Some of that, a lot of the time, it's not necessarily the people or the team. A lot of the time, there's various factors that can influence whether or not a company gets to Series A. But at the same time, I think having an incredible team with an incredible product makes it so much easier to do that. But I think all the issues are still there. You must have traction, you must be growing, you must have something interesting that's changing the market. There's so many companies out there that basically are nice companies. They're things that people want to have as opposed to things that people need. And I think it goes back to the same principle that if you've got a company that's filling a need in the market that people really need filled, I think you'll be successful and things will be fine. If you're in the market where you're trying to create the market, either you're so far ahead of the game where you stand the chance to potentially change the market, or you're really in a market where you shouldn't be. So I think it's definitely, even though there's more money there, I think it's definitely just as hard, no matter where you are, to raise that next round.
You know, and the other side of the coin really is the government. Here in San Francisco, we've had a pretty progressive government incentives to try to grow the tech sector here. What is that like on your end there in Northern Ireland?
I think there's a lot of government support here. You can look at it one of two ways. I think for some companies, you find companies who basically build themselves in order to allow the flow of government money to come in to keep them going, or people use it to build their business. And I think as long as you're using the government money that's coming in to basically sustain your business, if you're building your business to basically facilitate money coming in, and to me that's completely wrong. I think you have to use the money for what it was designed for, which is basically to support a business that you're currently like on the right path for. And I think sometimes people forget that. But the government here, like Invest Northern Ireland, or the government body here, and I think they've been incredibly active in promoting the startup space. They've funded a lot of programs that are really trying to drive the startup culture here through the Propel program, which is like an accelerator here for taking the brightest and the best companies. They've just put some more money into a government fund. I think it's like a $50 million fund, which has been run by a company called Pentech through Tech Start NI. And those guys have got an incredible history, really, really super smart guys with a really good pedigree. So I think they've only really recently taken the funds. I think there's a lot of big things expected from those guys, and rightly so, because they are an exceptional group of guys.
Well, that's kind of cool. So you're saying the accelerator program there, and I'm probably sure there's probably others growing, is sponsored by the government there. Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think technically Northern Ireland exists in what's known as market failure from a VC perspective. So there's, I think if you look at the European directives, technically we're in market failure with regards to VC investment. So I think the government has to step in and basically try and sustain that. But I think what they're trying to do alongside that is basically build the links in the networks that allow new, fresh money coming in to basically sustain what is currently there and being supported by the government. So there's a lot of interest in funds right now here beginning to look at Northern Ireland as an option, primarily because of the quality of the startups and the quality of the people here. But you've got funds like Thesis Ventures based in New York and Fort Lauderdale who are actively beginning to take a really good look at what's going on here. So there's definitely a lot of interesting things happening. I think you're beginning to see more and more people from outside of Northern Ireland and outside of Ireland begin to really take notice of what's going on here. And again, going back to companies like Brewbot, I think companies like that can only play a massive role in continuing to promote that.
Wow. So you just finished your event last week. So when's the next one? You said every quarter, right? So the next one's going to be in the last quarter of the year here?
Yeah, so our next one is going to be on December 5th in Belfast. So we did, the one on Thursday was the first one that we basically have done outside of Belfast. So we did it in Derry as part of the Culture Tech Festival. So it was fantastic. We've never done anything in Derry before, but it was really interesting and really good. And I think there's a lot of really great people came down for it. But I think it'll be nice to bring it back to Belfast. You're guaranteed a massive crowd, and I think, like, bearing in mind there's like something like 60% of Northern Ireland live within 30 miles of Belfast, so you've got a way bigger catchment area. So we're already a small country, 1.6 million people.
We're a small city. You guys are still bigger than us. But well, that's good, and that's going to be indoors, huh?
Yeah, so it's going to be back in the skate park in T13. So we're currently working on our speakers, working on our bands. So we've got some really interesting stuff that we never in a million years thought we would be able to access, which we'll be announcing very shortly. But again, that's incredibly exciting. Some of the bands we have lined up, and again, some of the speakers as well are going to be pretty interesting. Think of a band who've sold millions of records, and then think of somebody who's going to be coming to speak off the back of that.
All right. Well, when you get U2 signed up for one of your events, let me know. I want to cover that one.
I'll retire at that stage.
Okay, Aaron.
My work will be done.
That's right. You can swear all you want on live TV as you want.
Of course, so like Bono, if you're listening, you're more than welcome to come along. We'll even bring you a guitar.
There you hear it, Bono. If you're listening to the Nerd Stalker broadcast, which I think you are, we want you to come over and help our friend Aaron Taylor there in Northern Ireland. But anyway,
more importantly, Bono, if you're not listening, there's something badly wrong. You should be listening to this.
Absolutely, Bono.
Missing out.
Exactly. You don't know what's going on, Bono, if you don't listen to the Nerd Stalker podcast.
Somebody needs to get him to listen to this. Somebody needs to say, Bono, you have to listen to this. We're talking about you. We're dominating this podcast with you.
This is great. Well, anyway, on that note, we'll close off the interview, Aaron. How do people get a hold of you and learn more about your business, Go Prezzo, and this Friday Night Mashup that you created?
Yeah, so anybody at all, you can always get a hold of me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @I'm Aaron Taylor. That's I am Aaron Taylor. Or you can get me an email, which is just aaron@goprezzo.com. So always willing to talk to anybody.
Okay, and you have a regular site for the Friday Night Mashup, FridayNightMashup.com, I assume?
Yeah, FridayNightMashup.com. You'll find everything you need to know about the mashup there.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, anyway, thank you again. That was Aaron Taylor, founder of Friday Night Mashup, which highlights startups, live music, networking sessions, sofa discussions, Kickstarter stories, BMX displays, skateboard displays, everything. It's basically South by Southwest in one night. So I want to say it that way. Anyway, this is great.
Didn't include Bono.
and it will include Bono at some future date, so stay tuned, please. This is Greg Gloria, aka Social Greg, on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network, where we believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Hey, thanks, Aaron. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
All right, you stay on there, and I'll end the broadcast here.